Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. We're so glad to have you listening. As always, we are covering a listener's question today, one that was sent in, but we also hear this a lot in working with clients. When your partner has a sexual addiction and you're finding out this information and you're starting to recognize just what he's even been looking at and observing, whether it's other women, whether it's pornography, it makes so much sense why your brain would feel confused and want to know and want to make sense of this and ask the question. Here's the question. It doesn't make sense to me. How can he do this? Does he even think about me? And almost wondering, does he think about me while he's acting out? Does he think about me after? Am I a part of his cognition at all? And I think this is coming from a lot of different angles, Alana. Like, is he thinking about me? And is that making him feel guilty and helping him stop? Is he thinking about me and thinking about how much pain this is causing me, how it's going to destroy everything? It makes so much sense. And I totally been there and I get that. We're going to talk about that today. We're going to try and answer that question and do so without further activating all of you. But I think this is also maybe, Alana, I think we just give a trigger warning too today for our episode that,
If there's ever an
yeah, good
episode
one.
that might need a trigger warning, I feel like it's this one.
Yeah.
I believe that the quote of mental health is I keep wanting to give this quote on the podcast and I keep forgetting it. But in essence, it's sticking to reality at all cost. What is that quote? Anyway, next episode, I'm going to drag that quote and you're going to hear it again and I'm going to give the full quote. But there is some reality pieces of this that I think would be helpful to talk about. And one of the questions Amy and I asked ourselves of, okay, so why are we going to share this? If this is hard information, what's our purpose? What's our point? And our point from this is as you are able to see what is real and what is reality, that helps you, A, be able to make choices based in reality. B, you are able to set aside what's theirs and then figure out what you want to do with that. And then how do you not lose all of the emotional and mental energy that goes towards that? And so we are going to dive into this. It is uncomfortable. And I do believe that there is empowerment that comes with being able to look at and see what is real and what's reality.
Yeah. There absolutely is empowerment in reality. You can't make choices unless you're in reality. A lot of us know what that's like to be making choices based on false reality, and we're recognizing why it's not sustainable, why it's really not serving or helping us. So really choice can only be made in reality. But I think it just,
Amy, I found the quote.
okay, what?
I found the quote.
Yes.
Choice requires reality. And the actual quote is mental health is an ongoing process of dedication to reality at all cost. And that is from the book, The Road Less Traveled by M. Scott Peck.
Uh, yeah. So that's so yeah, what I was saying. It's just you can't make a choice unless you are living in reality. That's where your power is in reality. That's why we talk about it all the time. But I also just want to spend, I think, just a moment, Alana, validating why we do this, why we believe. And truly, like, I really believed that this would help from the bottom of my heart, from the goodness of my heart, trying to help save my partner from destroying the family, from destroying himself. Just look at me. Like, just like, when you get on your kids' eye level and you're like, okay, I look at my eyes and let me make sure that you're really hearing what I'm saying. Can you really see what you're doing? Do you really know what you're doing? But also, I think there was this, if I'm being honest, there was this part of me that wanted to know this, like this listener's question. How can he do this? And does he even think about me? Does he think about me during? And does he think about me after? I will be honest, there was a part of me that wanted to know that for a couple of reasons. Do I exist in your life? I think is where one of those reasons were. Like, do you even care about me? Or am I nothing to you? Do I mean nothing to you? I don't know how I never got to ask these questions. I don't know how it would feel if, let's say he answered and says, "Yes, I think about you during." I don't know how I'd feel about that. But I think underneath that, the reason why I wanted to know is because I wanted to know, do you even care? Because I care. I've cared about this relationship. So do you? Or am I nothing to you? Is our family and everything we built nothing to you? And I think that's where a lot of these women are coming from in this question.
I notice in that there is this dualistic thinking, right? And by the way, I'll just validate, like, I've totally been here as a betrayed partner. But there is this, he's either thinking about me and he's invested and cares, or he doesn't think about me and he's not invested and doesn't care. And in my experience working with, and I'll talk about addiction specifically first, though it can umbrella to all sexual acting out. But with addiction, they absolutely can care about you, and they have the ability to compartmentalize and put you and their family and their values in a box and put that up on the shelf, and then fully be present in that addictive part of their brain because it accesses different parts of their brain. And
Mhm.
so the reality is it's quite complex. Now, it doesn't mean what you need to do with this is complex. It doesn't mean that the reality is necessarily complex, but the different parts of them that show up and are activated is complex. And I see a lot of women tend to focus on one part of them and make it the whole. For good or bad, they may do it in a way of, no, he really does love me and he really does care. Yes, I know he's going to the strip clubs and he's hiding it. And yes, I know that he's looking at porn. And yes, I know he's cheated on me, but he really, really loves me. And then they make that the only part of their personality. Or on the opposite of, he obviously doesn't love me. He doesn't care. He's acted outside of the values. Must mean he hates me. We really internalize it and things about us. And in most cases, neither of those in their entirety is going to be fully accurate. But the part that it is across the board that I see with addicts is the compartmentalization,
Yeah.
the ability to be able to put people or things or parts of their life completely up on a shelf. And they pull out one box and they pull out another. And what they believe is the addicts believe that they are able to live these double lives and have all of these boxes. And a lot of the work that we do when we're working with addiction is coming out of that compartmentalized thinking of realizing that you can't actually put those boxes up on a shelf, that these parts of you all actually interact and blend together. But their ability to shut that out
Mhm.
off is quite, I don't know if advanced is the right word.
I was gonna say brilliant.
Build,
What the
they've had a lot.
brain what the brain can do there is quite remarkable, how the brain knows how to do that in order to support their acting out behaviors and, quote, "keep them alive," right? It's all the facade, everything. It's not healthy by any means, and that's not what we're trying to indicate here, but how the brain is able to do that is extensive.
And some compartmentalization can be healthy. Like, for example, as a therapist,
Mhm.
I still have a life. Things happen in my everyday life. It is healthy for me to be able to take my stuff and set it aside and sit with a client and be fully present with that client. That
Mhm.
requires healthy levels of compartmentalization. Now,
Right.
can you imagine if, like, well, this happened at Christmas time, my dog died. I love my dog. Still makes me cry if I talk too much about him. But if I'm showing up in my session and my client says something and I just start bawling and I go, I'm sorry, my dog died and your thing right now is about my dog, like, that would not be helpful to my client. But with an addict, we take it from what could be a healthy coping mechanism and it goes into a maladaptive coping mechanism to where now it is a way of living and that they are justifying behaviors and segregating their experiences and emotionally detaching from one experience to be to engaged in another. That is detachment from their values. Anyway,
Mhm.
I'm talking way too much, Amy, but, like, this piece of this compartmentalizing, learning about this as a partner of somebody who has betrayed you and learning what that entails and noticing how that has shown up and how that is showing up can be beneficial in your own healing.
It can, and I also wanna validate how it can really freaking piss you off at first. Eventually, yes, I think it can be helpful because then you don't make it personal and you can eventually see this really isn't about you, you didn't cause it, and you're not what am I trying to say? This isn't about you. You are enough. But at first, I remember understanding this concept and it made me mad because I wanted to be his all and his everything. I wanted him to see what he was doing to me and to our family. So I see this a lot in clients. They want to put themselves in front of their partner all the time. So that's where the hypervigilance comes in.
Mhm,
Right?
mhm.
I'm gonna call you all the time. I'm gonna check on you. You need to call me. You need to tell me where you're gonna be.
I'm
Um,
gonna make myself be in the forefront of your mind.
I had a client once where this is years ago, but I remember she told me that she taped her picture in his car, like right above the windshield. Like she wanted her face right there, right? So that you can see me. And then if you're driving somewhere else, you better look at me and you better freaking turn around. So it's this idea that like if you saw me, then maybe you would choose differently. And
Mhm.
if you choose differently, then I wouldn't have to feel so much pain.
When your face is taped to the car window, or the amount of clients I've had who tape things like to their computer or
Mm.
screen paper on the phone,
Yeah.
um, and then they still do it anyway, we tend to then internalize that even more.
Yeah.
He looked at me and he still chose this. Why am I not enough?
Yes.
What is this about me? And then that internalizing takes our trauma up to amplifies to a whole nother level. When in
Holy.
reality, it isn't about us. You could be the most perfect person, perfect partner, and they could still look at you and choose to go act out in those addictive behaviors.
Yeah.
And so being able to separate ourselves out of that is essential. But yes, validating that need and desire in a way to try to protect ourselves by, I'm going to call him constantly. Did you just say that? I used the old kids don't do that anymore. For those of you who are listening to the podcast, it's like the hang loose
The thumb and
sign.
the pinky.
Yeah.
Oh, you.
But no, the kids now do this. Anyway, no, but I'm gonna call him. I'm going to
Yeah.
text him. I'm gonna make him check in with me every hour on the hour.
Mhm.
And that hopes to try to keep ourselves safe. The reality is, and it sucks, is when they are acting out, in most cases, they are not thinking about you. They are in a very selfish and not even like, yes, selfish, but self-centered, like this.
Self-centered and absorbed state. It is all about the hit
Mhm,
that they're getting.
mhm. And so very rarely are you or their values forefront in their mind.
Right. I think this is equally hard when and maybe this leads to a different topic, Alana, so rein me in here, but what just came to my mind too is when we don't understand that healthy intimacy involves verbal, cognitive, emotional, psychological, spiritual, and then I always split up physical and sexual. When we don't understand that all of those 7 different levels of intimacy play into a relationship, and I'll speak for myself, but I do see this a lot, where our gauge of whether the relationship is okay or not is if we're having sex. And so you take that one thing that we have thought means relational and closeness and intimate, right, with our partner, and they're doing that one thing with someone else. It makes sense why it's that much more devastating because I remember thinking like, that's all I have. Do you know what I mean? It's
Mm,
so deeper because to me, that's also how I gauged if we were okay, is if we were having sex. Okay, I'm okay, we're okay. Okay, I'm okay. He's having sex with me. So it cut even deeper because that was my everything in the relationship. And when we wrap it up into intimacy and closeness and relational stuff. Again, it's probably taking us a whole different direction, but I just feel like
No.
there's such an intensity there when that's all we know about a relationship. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yes, but I'm having a hard time in my brain tying the 2 together.
I guess why I'm bringing it up is because with that level of hypervigilance, I think we're even more intensely hypervigilant and equally scared of not being enough and why it hits at our core so deeply if sex is all that we are making our relationship mean in terms of closeness and connectivity.
Yeah, a lot of my couples, that is one of the only ways they know how to connect.
Yeah.
So when we've done like a celibacy contract or a sex fast and we've taken sex off the table for a season to work on some of those other areas of the relationship, and in essence, drain the pond
Yeah.
to see what's at the bottom of the pond, and then we start filling it back up. And so when that piece gets taken away, seeing how much else isn't there. And so if that is all you have, and then they use that in a way to betray you, then yeah, the pain will be that much greater. And again, our brains going back to that initial question of, is he thinking about me? In that question is, how can I keep him with me? How can I protect myself? And so, is he thinking about me? Well, if he's not, okay, then that's something we can fix.
Hmm. Hmm.
But ultimately, the way that that gets fixed really is through their deeper work, which is learning about their own compartmentalizing, learning how to bring those boxes down, to how to see their life as more of an overall whole, removing some of those detachments. That truly is their work.
Which I can see how frustrating this would be because how many times do we usually, and no matter what topic we bring up, it all circles back around to, so essentially you all are saying, I can't fix this. Essentially, you're all saying that if I get in his face or if I just help him remember what he's going to be losing, that's not going to fix him.
No, but that also doesn't mean that you're powerless, because that's where I see brains go then after that.
Right? Because that's all we, if not, then what? Then it's over.
Yeah,
Everything.
exactly. And then there's this sitting down of there's nothing I can do. Then he's
Yeah.
gonna do what he's gonna do, or they are gonna do what they're gonna do, and there's nothing I can do. So why even try?
Yeah.
And this goes back to, okay, so what is helpful for you? Where does your empowerment lie? Part of your empowerment is right here. You're getting educated on what actually is in your power. And the energy we spend on things that are not in our power is what truly depletes us.
Yep.
So every ounce of energy that we're spending on trying to make sure we're forefront in their mind and make sure that we're just right there and make sure that they're following their values, all that energy is energy that is being depleted out of us.
Yep.
So when we start to take that back and we let them carry what's theirs to carry, we can carry what's ours to carry. And that doesn't mean either that we have to abandon the relationship. This says nothing about relational work. It's really just recognizing what is ours and what is not.
Right. And if it isn't safe to do relational work right now because they are, in fact, actively acting out right now, because I think a lot of our clients, they're in this place where like, but I'm worried if I stop, then he's going to act out. Or if I do stop, then the pattern is that he's acted out. So I think just want to
Okay,
validate
but that
fear.
right there. If the only thing that is keeping them from acting out is
Is you.
you expending all of that energy, do you want to do that the rest of your life? Do you want to be that babysitter? Do you want to be that warden? Do
But
you
that
want
I think is the false reality that we were talking about in the beginning, right? Is it's you aren't and it isn't sustainable. You might be able to do that and have done that, but it's not sustainable and you really aren't the gatekeeper to that, nor should you be.
And the reality is, I have had women who have done that for decades, and the physical consequences of that, the emotional consequences of that, the consequences relationally on the whole relationship of that, there's so many. And so while it technically could be sustainable, it would be sustainable in a very maladaptive way with a lot of negative consequences.
That's what I mean. You're not gonna get healthy out of that.
Right.
You're going to suffer. It's not sustainable in the sense of you can continue this on for the rest of your life and not have personal consequences.
Mhm. Mhm. And sometimes it's only those consequences that do wake us up to our reality and tell us, "Hey, I need to do something different."
Yeah.
I've had multiple clients who the thing that finally made them go, "Okay, actually, I have to have boundaries," or, "Okay, I have to leave the relationship," or, "Okay, I have to do my own work," is those natural consequences, and the pain of change becomes less than the pain of staying where they are.
I know that's what it was for me. It just came down to physical, mental, emotional, spiritual depletion. Like I've said, to the point where I wasn't even recognizable. That's what it took. It's going to catch up at some point. Really, I hope our listeners listening to this, I know this was a hard topic, and we want to believe that if we do want to believe that we have some control here, and it's really frustrating when you realize that you don't, or you're hearing that you don't. I do wanna give hope, though, that I know a lot of all of your clients too, that when we work with our clients through this really hard part, even though it feels so impossible and it's hard for the brain to see what is on the other side of not doing this, that once our clients get to that other side, it's like a total transformation, right? Like physical in their body transformation, because you really are saving energy. It's shifting your focus in such a different way that it's like I can literally almost sense the space being made in their body after they've made this shift.
Almost an expand.
It's like this expansion.
Mhm. And here's another piece of that, because sometimes it can feel almost selfish of, I'm going to expand for myself and I'm going to do all of these wonderful things. All of that is true. And it does help the relationships around you. It gives them an opportunity for healthy. When we step out of that drama triangle, when we step out of the maladaptive coping, when we start having boundaries, it gives the opportunity for the relationship to thrive in healthy ways. I think about, I was a stay at home mom for 11 years. And when I decided to go back to work, it really threw me. So I went and did some therapy around it. And I was like, I'm going to ruin my kids and they're going to get sexually abused. And I just like, my brain went to all the places. It was so terrifying. What was so interesting and surprising to me is a year after going back to work, seeing how much my family emotionally benefited from that. And in my case, I tend to be an overachiever and I tend to be really helpful. And so I was so busy being so helpful for my family. In a lot of ways, I didn't give them opportunity for growth or for learning or to be able to step up and find the reward and joy that came from the success of doing things for themselves. And our family, when we did have our weekends together or our evenings together, we cherished them even more. I cherish that time with my kids more. My kids cherish that time with us more. And in so many ways, and I'm not saying any of you who are stay-at-home moms, I'm not saying you need to go back to work. But in our family and the way our dynamics were, when I didn't have that same bandwidth to do everything for everybody, it forced me to allow them room to grow.
Mhm.
And it was so helpful in my marriage. It was so helpful in my relationship with my kids. It was so helpful for their personal growth. And I could give that same analogy for many areas in my life, that when I finally let go and I gave people what was theirs to own and hold, they benefited from it and our relationship benefited from it. And I benefited from it.
Yeah. It definitely leaves the opportunity for that, for everyone to choose now into, right? And when we're talking about the relationship, I think it gives your partner that opportunity to choose into the relationship rather than you must see me and choose me. You must hear me. You must see me because if you just see me and see how hurt I am and see the pain that you're causing and see the pain that your choices are making, then you must, I mean, all of us on both sides need to choose. And I think that is the scariest part is that if I let go, then he might not choose me. If I stop getting in front of his face, if I stop making myself known, if I stop letting him know how much this hurts, then he might not choose me. I think that's the scariest part of it all and why we can stay stuck in this space of trying to fix, trying to help, trying to be in their face, make ourselves known and think about me all the time, please. So I think that episode that we did, I don't know when this one's going to air, but the episode we did on should I stay or should I go, we talked a little bit about this and work with a professional to help you navigate some of those fears of what if he doesn't choose me? Because I will tell you this ultimately, I know each and every one of you listening want to be in a relationship where that person really does choose you, but we have to choose ourselves first. We have to choose ourselves first. We have to love ourselves first. Even the addict needs to learn. Part of his recovery is learning to love himself first. And that it takes the level of emotional maturity work, right? We've got to do the same. We need to learn to love ourselves first. When you do, it will help counter some of that hypervigilance that I know a lot of us struggle with. But when you turn towards you, it will make a shift. And if that person that you want so desperately to choose to shift on their own, it really can be, I think, the story that you all are hoping it can be. If not, you will not fall apart. You will take yourself with you. That's why we're always saying choose you, do that individual work first so that you won't collapse on the floor when and hopefully never, but if that person doesn't choose to do their own work as well. But you got to learn to love yourself first. And they do too.
I think that is a beautiful way to wrap up our episode. And what's going through my head is our tagline: choose recovery, choose healing, choose you.
Yeah.
And that lays the foundation for all of the other work and all of the other healing. And it makes such a difference in a relationship when they are forced to stay or they choose to stay and they choose to be invested and they choose to do the work.
And you get to feel the grief, y'all. You get to feel the grief when that person doesn't choose to do their work. I think when you choose you, you make space to feel the grief.
Maybe that's our next episode.
Mm.
It's what does it look like when they are doing the work? Because we get really caught up of they're in recovery or they're not. So maybe we go into some of the complexities next week of what that looks like and what the healing journey looks like. So,
Okay.
as always, thank you for hanging out with Amie and I. Be gentle with yourself. Notice what came up this episode. Notice what parts activated you. Notice what fears came up and be really gentle with yourself, especially when we tackle some of these harder topics. So, as always, thanks for hanging out with Amie and I, and we look forward to seeing you all next week. I'm going to guess that healing from betrayal was something that you never thought you'd have to deal with or hoped you never have to deal with. And doing this type of work is the hardest emotional work you may ever have to do. And you don't have to do it alone. We have coaches and therapists in our Choose Healing groups to help lead you and guide you forward, who have not only learned the tools and resources to help you get to that healing and freedom and peace again, but have walked that path themselves. And in those groups, you're going to find other women who understand your pain, who can say that, me too, and who can give you that support, not just in your weekly group meetings, but that connection between meetings. I encourage you to take that brave step forward, to be vulnerable. It is not easy, but the reward of putting in the work, putting that one step forward as you choose healing and you choose recovery and you choose you, you will be able to move forward and heal.